If you have a broken differential mount on a Geo Tracker or a Suzuki Sidekick, watch this video. We weld this one back up, and I got another Band-Aid fix to prevent this from happening again. Hey guys, this is Jeff from the YouTube channel The Wolf of Wisco. In this episode, I got a broken differential. There's a mount on the differential broken. We're gonna fix it. Follow along. So I got this little Geo Tracker that I sometimes pull with the RV, and I go to a couple off-road rallies with it. And this last rally I was stuck on a hill and I was trying to back up, and I heard a bang and I heard a pop, and then the front drive shaft was banging around, hitting up on the transmission housing here. This was flexing all the way up about 1.5 inches, and I found out that a common problem here is the mount breaks right there. There's an aluminum part right here inside this metal bracket, and that snaps off. And I know they make this differential housing, and this is an aluminum die-cast aluminum housing. They also make this housing, I believe, in steel, but I've got a friend that can weld aluminum. I can weld aluminum. I'm not good at it, so I'm gonna let my buddy fill that in, and we'll weld it back on, drop it back in. So that's the plan. We're gonna pull this out. I've already popped off one drive shaft. The left-hand drive shaft goes onto the differential. Loosen that mount. I've unbolted that from the cross member. This drive shaft slides right out, and there's one more high mount up above right there that's got to come out. And of course the drive shaft will be taken off right here, these 4 bolts, and we'll take that little lightweight differential out of here. So that's the plan. Okay, put that in fast motion so I didn't have to bore you with the details, but there's a bracket up on the frame there that goes into the side of the diff. I pulled those 3 bolts out. Hopefully that's enough out of the way. I got the drive shaft loose here. Got the wobble socket here. Helps me get in some of these tight spots here. All right, we'll leave that one hanging too. There's dirt here. I think she's just hanging in there. Let's see. And this has got to pop loose here. The axle's got to pop out of the case. There it went. There it is. Oh man. Differential fluid on the shirt. Not good, not good. 20 minutes in time to do laundry. All right, we'll be back at it. Okay, got a clean shirt on after that episode of the differential puking out all the diffy fluid all over me. That's some pretty black stuff. Let's check this thing out. That is a pretty lightweight differential, all aluminum, and plug the shaft hole there. So here's that broken piece. There's a pretty good sized cross section. It's hard to believe that broke, but I guess that's a weak link on the differential mount. All right, let's take another look at this differential mount. Got quite a bit of material in the center, but the outer portions aren't very thick on the casting. So I'm gonna have my buddy weld that section back on here, do our best. Just to get it back on the road, we're gonna weld it back on here. And then this is quite a unique design. Everything was 14mm bolts. So I left the rubber mount in here. I left the rubber mount up in here. These bolts were accessed through the wheel well right here. 3 bolts there. 4 bolts right from the front, 3 more bolts here, and the drive shaft bolts, and everything was 14mm. So I took a wrench and a socket, or 2 wrenches, or however you're gonna do it, but it's all 14mm. So Geo Tracker, pretty easy to work on. my buddy Jeremy, he's welding that up for me. We are not going to try to put this piece back in due to these two holes. There's not a lot of surface area, so we're just going to build it all the way out with weld, and then I'm going to re-drill the mounting holes here. We've got a bucket of water here to cool it off every couple minutes. Just got home from my buddy's place down the road. He welded that mount back on. As you know, that the old mount was broken off, and here's the old mount right here, about like that. But instead of trying to weld this on and deal with these are core pin holes for the die casting. Die casting doesn't like to be thick, so thick sections, they want uniform wall thickness when casting, you know, so that's why those holes were cast into this part, and then they cross drilled for the mount, and obviously that's a thin section. But what we did is we just ground it down. He filled the two holes up and welded this all back in. Took about 45 minutes, probably 7 or 8 welding rods, and I'm going to show you guys. I'm going to just drill this back out, probably mount it back up in there and find exact location, drill these out. It's not critical, and then use this mount. But I've seen some other folks, one other post, it wasn't a YouTube, it was another post somewhere on the interweb, where the guy another option is cut this completely off. Cut this knob, if it's broken off, whatever is remaining on here, the little section, grind it off so it's just a round snout here, and then you can get a big long U-bolt like that, and the snout will sit right here. You can U-bolt it right through this frame, put a little rubber piece under here, maybe 1/4 inch thick, and then crank it down, and that'll hold the pinion snout in place. But I had my buddy, he's a pro welder, that's what he does, and he built this up for me. He didn't charge me anything. And the other thing I'm gonna do, we'll get it up there, we'll see if, I just cut a little notch in here, and everybody's gonna say it's a stress riser, yada, whatever. I don't care. I'm gonna put this U-bolt here, we'll see if it fits. It's a square U-bolt, I understand, I know. I'm gonna put that in there as a belt and suspenders, because what happens is that the end of the pinion, when you put it in reverse, it wants to rip upward, it's forced upward. And if I put the U-bolt down, I'll show you guys, follow along. Okay, here we go. You gotta put this end in first. And pass that seal. There we go. Slam it in. There goes there. Clear this axle. A little bit tight. There we go. There she is. Grab a bolt. I just want to get the thing hanging up in here quick. The rubber mount's in place. I'm gonna just kind of pry this up, put a wedge under it, and get it right where it needs to be, and bore those two holes. Okay, I wedged a socket underneath it. I found a socket that was the right diameter, just as a shim, and I got a lot more material that we welded on here. Probably could have went top and bottom, added material as well, because we just made it the existing width. But anyway, I am gonna drill these holes from the backside here, just in case anything moves. I'm gonna mark these holes. Here as well. All right, Got it all marked out. So you guys can see. Look at that. One-hander here. No way. No way I got it perfect. Tell me that. Come on. Yeah. Well, that was lucky. So I'm gonna put a bolt in that one. Let's put a bolt in that one. Yeah, okay. Yep, we're good. Yeah. Look at that.
Oh my gosh, just look at it.
The bolts will go right there. Looks great. It's back in, guys. There's the welded lug, reconstructed, drilled, mounted. Everything's in place. So, if you did not have a welder, guys, here's what I'm gonna tell you. I saw somebody who just, if it broke off and you're not able to get a welder and weld this back on, you can cut it right here, cut it off completely, grind it off so you have a round snout on the end of that, and you can use a 3.5 or 4-inch U-bolt, heavy duty U-bolt. What I'm gonna do is, back to the U-bolt. If you have the U-bolt, you gotta drill a hole about right here and one over here, kind of behind this arm, right up in here, and you put the big 4-inch U-bolt, cut an access hole, and you can put the nuts on underneath here. And you might not have to cut a spacer at an angle, like a sleeve, so it's, because it comes down inside here at an angle, and then your nuts would go up inside here. That's one possible fix. And shove a hunk of rubber in here, belting, some thick rubber, you know, and you can just crank the snout of this right down to the cross member, and it doesn't move. It's solid. What happens is, in the drive location, it's fine. It pushes down on the pinion, but in reverse, it flips up. And what I did is, when I had when I had this out, it's hard to see, but there's a rib on the top of the case. I cut a little slot in it. I cut a notch in it. See this notch right there? And I am gonna try to use this. This was the only thing I could find was the square. But for belt and suspenders here, when I go out and go four-wheeling, I'm gonna drill a couple holes right on the edge of this lip. And we're gonna put this bolt from the top down, and we're gonna bolt right into here. And you could almost leave that loose. You could double nut it. You could put a nut so it could slide a little bit up and down, but you don't want it to flex, because it'll flex all the way up till it's contacting here and beating on the oil pan. So let's look at this as the secondary fix, because primary fix is this. It's welded back on, probably better than stock. So, all right, guys, so here's the belt and suspenders fix. This is how I could add an extra belt and suspenders to this for the fix. So now that I've got this fixed, I'm not worried about it breaking downward, but it's still, if you put the vehicle in reverse, the pinion can flip upward. Until now, which I've got this squared U-bolt, I've got about a finger's distance to the oil pan. Ideally, this is 3 inches wide. That's how wide it is. The case necks down here, and then it gets larger. There's a bearing under the pinion here. That's why it's larger. That's about almost 4 inch. Here it's necked down to 3 inch. And what I did is, way up high, on top of the transmission, there's a rib up there. I took a die grinder and put a little round notch in it, so it digs in the rib, and then I had to cut a clearance right here. I wanted a round corner, and I ended up having to do that just with a Sawzall from down here, but you could radius that And yeah, okay, could be a stress riser up in this little corner. It's not gonna break there. That's not the fail mode on this differential housing. That's not gonna be the weak point. Anyway, the weak point is right here. And now if it tries to kick upward, instead of putting all the stress into this boss, I've got these bolts just barely snugged, and I drilled 2 3/8" holes here, put this down, and that is a torque limiter, or a pinion limiter. It will not allow the pinion to go up anymore. Try to get a video up here. There we go. As you can see, there's that notch I put in the rib right here. And that locates that, and then I notch this rib right here. So the U-bolt can run around. Obviously a rounded U-bolt might work better, get a little more clearance to the oil pan, but that's what they had in a 3-inch wide. This is a 3-inch wide by 6-inch tall, threaded square U-bolt, and I didn't have to cut any off. It was perfect length, just a little bit coming through. So that will prevent any rotation of the pinion and prevent the load from going into this during a reverse cycle. Yeah, and I got a little bit of compression just started to compress this a little bit. The only downside of this is these nuts are hanging down right on this cross member at the low part of the vehicle. So they're down, whatever, the thickness of a nut. If you wanted to on your vehicle, you could weld a little piece of angle iron right here, or weld a couple tabs, a couple washers, something, and you could put, but there's not a lot of room to spin a nut right here. I am right up against here, and there's a little room to move forward, maybe this way, maybe a 1/2 inch. So that's why I did it right into the lip of the cross member. So that's the fix. All right, guys, that fixes it. The weak link on the die-cast aluminum front differential housing on a Geo Tracker Suzuki Sidekick, that little knob that breaks off, weld it on. And of course the Band-Aid here, the extra belt and suspenders with the U-bolt. Like I said, if you don't have a welder, you can grind that off and get a larger 4-inch U-bolt and bolt it right down through here with a hunk of rubber in between here. Just bolt it direct, it'll be fine, and eliminate this mount altogether. Thanks for watching, guys. Hope that helped.